Yeah, it shows. I mean, it's obvious already from the words that the relationship's totally broken or the friendship's totally broken. But the fact that he's making it so blatant, I really didn't expect it.
Yeah, I mean, incredibly sad, to be honest. Very surprised as well, because I didn't realize actually how bad things have been. Interesting point that you made about the World Cup. I wonder how this is gonna affect that and kind of the team as a whole. I wonder how it's gonna affect the coach as well, if he had any thoughts about putting Lebron and Galan together. It does feel like it's been a bit of a sour ending for what has been a historic partnership in Padel.
I do agree with Lebrón in that sense. I understand him being so, salty and so frustrated, and it's a shame because I think it's been the reason why we haven't seen Lebrón at his best so far.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Paddle Pod, your weekly podcast covering professional paddle presented by Hugo and Gons. We're on to episode 64, and as always, joined by my co-host Hugo here today. Hugo, it's great to have you on. How are you doing?
I'm very well, thanks, Gons. A little bit more knackered than normal. As I just told you, I've just got back from holiday and I've had a 7-hour drive back from the south of Portugal. So, yeah, I've felt fresher, but I've always got time to talk about paddle. So, yeah, can't complain. How about yourself?
Yeah, I think on one side, I'm kind of sad because it does feel like summer is over, in the sense that I'm away from Madrid at the moment, going back tomorrow, and it kind of just feels like, going back to routine and work. So on that front, maybe a bit sad, but at the same time, I'm incredibly excited because we're starting as well our paddle season very soon on Tuesday, training at a new club with new players, and I think it should be a lot of fun, and it feels definitely like a start of a new paddle season. So I'm on that side. I'm just so excited to get started, to be honest.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, I've missed paddle so much, and not just us playing paddle, which is a big priority, but also Premier Paddle. And finally, after a month's break, more or less, we're back, given that the Madrid P1 starts next week. And yeah, I just can't wait for the routine. Play paddle, watch paddle, talk about paddle, and just time to be back.
Exactly. Yeah. I definitely won't be complaining about that. But maybe we should get started. We do have Premier Paddle coming back this week. We've got the Madrid P1, but some very interesting events leading up to the actual tournament itself, which we will talk about the tournament and give a bit of our predictions. But before that, we have to discuss, I think, one of the biggest, I guess, news that broke out towards the end of this week. And well, basically, to let you all in on it, if you didn't see, because I'm not sure how big it was abroad, but in Spain, it was very big because this was essentially done in a Spanish TV or a Spanish news kind of channel. And basically, Lebron and Galan were at a Red Bull event, I think, promoting kind of the brand. They're obviously both sponsored by Red Bull and one of the ambassadors, alongside Bea Gonzalez as well. And at the event, they got asked some questions about their sort of relationship and about their partnership. Now, I don't know if the actual questions came to light. I don't think I've seen the actual questions being asked or what they got asked, but we did get to see some clips of the statements of kind of what Lebron and Galan responded to each of them. Now, they did say the following things in Spanish, and I'm going to be paraphrasing now, but Lebron basically said, "We live 300 meters away from each other, and he doesn't have the courage to tell me to my face. It hurts. According to Galan, I've been a hindrance all of his career. We've been 3 years world number ones, and it seems like he hasn't enjoyed his time with me. And for me, my partner is like my brother." Then Galan subsequently, I don't know if in kind of responding to this or not, because like I said, we don't really see the reporting, what they actually, like the reporter, the journalist actually like asked. But Galan said, "I've asked him if he still keeps his phone number to message him so we can play matches together and see each other. It will never be up to me to extend my hand, as I've always done. A relationship can't be fixed if one of the two doesn't want to fix it." And then after this, Lebron actually took to Twitter to post the following in reply to the clip that was shown about both of them, and said, "I just want to clarify that I've never crossed any words with Ale. I don't understand why there are people that have the need to distort reality. Now you want to fix it. You feel like you've done something bad. I don't understand how someone can act with so much coldness in front of the cameras after not having the courage to talk things out in person at the time. So yeah, whew, I mean, just reading it, I mean, my hands are like shaking. There's definitely no love lost between the two. Needless to say, I mean, the relationship is completely broken. And Hugo, I want to ask you, what are your thoughts about these statements?
Obviously, absolutely shocked that it's been so obvious. And just to add another element to it, I love kind of reading into players like Instagram profiles and pictures, etc. Lebron made a post about this Red Bull Media Day, which is when, yeah, as you just mentioned, where him, Galan exchanged those words, and Gonzalez, was also there. There's one of the pictures that he's posted is him and Gonzalez and literally cutting out Galan. So you can only see him and Bea. And Galan is sat next to Bea. So, I mean, you actually have to make the effort to cut him out. So, yeah, it shows. I mean, it's obvious already from the words that the relationship's totally broken or the friendship's totally broken. But the fact that he's making it so blatant, I really didn't expect it. I mean, I kind of have contrasting thoughts because on the one side, I think that Lebron, even though he's a very, well, we've always spoken that he's a very, spoken about the fact that he's a very emotional player, that sometimes his emotions and his actions get the better of him. I do think that he's quite honest in the sense that he's quite transparent. And I highly doubt that he's making these things up. If Galan hasn't gone and spoken to him in person about wanting to break up their partnership when they've been together for over 3.5 years and, well, been the number one ranked pair in the world and one of the best pairs ever, that feels bad to me. I mean, that feels like a little bit snaky. And I would expect my partner, the partner who I've lived with and worked with for the past 3 years and reached the highest heights in the world in my sport and my job, to kind of have that respect towards me. So I understand Lebron in that sense. And from Galan's side, I think that answer or that comment is basically taking the piss out of Lebron's words, which it's a bold move. I don't know. I mean, we've said that you never know what can happen in paddle, and things may change and they may end up having to play together, maybe sooner than later as well, because the World Cup's coming up pretty soon and Lebron and Galan could easily be one of the pairs. So I don't think it's good for them to have this relationship, well, this kind of this beef going on. And as I said, I understand Lebron's point of view a lot. And also, if Galan's actually said that Lebron has been a hindrance to his career, that's so tough. And I definitely don't agree with it. I mean, Galan's become the number one player in the world thanks to Lebron, in part. I know it's been a mutually beneficial relationship, but towards the start of their partnership, I think Lebron was the leader. And I think Lebron had already been the best player in the world before then because he'd reached the number one rank with Paquito. So in that sense, Galan's saying that when Galan's only been the number one seeded pair next to Lebron feels very harsh. But yeah, those are my initial thoughts. I mean, it's bold from Lebron. It's aggressive. It's, to be honest, maybe it's a bit excessive. But yeah, Gons, what do you think?
Yeah, firstly, I just want to kind of clarify that I'm not exactly sure if Galan has publicly actually said that Lebron was a hindrance or his career, or if this is maybe something that Lebron kind of like assumes, or maybe it's somewhere private or something like that. I just want to make that clear. I mean, I'm pretty sure I haven't seen anywhere like Galan actually saying, Lebron has been a hindrance or not. So I kind of like just want to clarify, like in case, we're not saying that Galan has said that. Maybe that's somewhere between him and Lebron. But yeah, as you do say, incredibly bold, very honest. I mean, I do agree with you there. I do think that Lebron, for all his other faults and all the other things that he's done bad in the past and kind of his attitude sometimes off court, on court, I do think that he's an honest person, and generally think that even when he speaks to the media, I mean, he's one of the players that actually speaks his mind. And how many times has that got him into trouble, because he's kind of said the things that maybe he doesn't
Agreed.
want people to hear, but they actually needed to hear. So, I mean, you can kind of, I guess, debate, his attitude sometimes and the things he does, but I don't think that you can kind of like doubt his honesty. So I definitely think that it's kind of, in this sense, I do believe Lebron and kind of what he said. And in a way as well, I think it would have been quite easy for Galan to just shut down anything about, oh yeah, we've definitely spoken and we clarified things, and I told him everything, but he hasn't. I mean, his kind of statements about, I've asked him if he still keeps his phone. I mean, that doesn't, I guess, contradict LeBron's statement about, like, we still haven't really talked about what happened in our split. So yeah, I mean, I think that kind of also tells that LeBron is probably telling the truth, because Galan could really easily just shut down what kind of LeBron said. And yeah, I mean, incredibly sad, to be honest. Very surprised as well, because I didn't realize actually how bad things have been. And despite the fact that we did see them play together as in play against each other, sorry, in Geneva, and you could definitely feel that like something was off. I mean, even after the match, like I remember we commented how cold was kind of the handshake at the end, but it just didn't, I guess, show how bad it actually is, because you thought like maybe, okay, like obviously things are bad, but maybe they're professional, they're cordial to each other, they see each other every day. But it kind of definitely feels like the relationship is not in a good state, and they actually don't like each other at the moment. So in that sense, it's a bit surprising. I didn't expect it was going to be this bad. And very interesting point that you made about the World Cup. I wonder how this is going to affect that and kind of the team as a whole. I wonder how it's going to affect the coach as well, if he had any thoughts about putting Lebron and Galan together. So we'll see what happens there. But having said this, I do believe that with time they will kind of have a relationship again. I mean, time kind of is the healer of everything. It cures everything. And I'm sure at the end of the day, paddle is just such a small world. I'm not sure that it's kind of worth having these kind of grudges, if you see what I mean, throughout kind of your career. They see each other every day. They're probably train with each other as well. So I just think that it's still kind of early days in a way after their split, and it was like, I'm sure it was super intense when they were together and traveling and kind of living together and being world number one, and all the expectations that everyone had about them, and them winning. So I'm sure that this is kind of like that moment when you break up after a long relationship that you still kind of hurt. So I'm sure that at some point in the future they will sit down and they will kind of figure things out. I mean, in a way, I'm kind of hoping that they do, because I do think that Lebron and Galan, for what they've meant to the sport, they deserve a second chance of like playing together and having a good second run and like finishing it well, if you see what I mean. At least finishing it in a more friendlier kind of way. It does feel like it's been a bit of a sour ending for what has been a historic partnership in paddle.
Yeah, I agree. I think I totally agree with all your analysis. I mean, it's just really surprising that these words would come out now. Also, at a event by the brand that sponsors them both, it must have been a bit awkward in that room, and also for the brand itself. But well, who knows? Maybe it's given Red Bull publicity. But yeah, I mean, what I would say, and something that I think Lebron got wrong, is that when they played against each other, so when Lebron and Paquito played against Chigoto and Galan for the first time, one of the best matches of the season, by the way. That first, well, Lebron was really, really good throughout the game. I think it's probably been his best game throughout the whole season. And he seemed like quite jokey and quite happy on the court when things were going well. Now, as soon as the match ended, and obviously they ended up losing in 3 sets after a very tight match, he that's when he got really pissed off, didn't look at Ale, didn't want to shake his hand properly. So I think LeBron has to learn to deal with his emotions in that sense, because you can't be all jokey and funny when things are going well. Because I remember a couple of times there were moments throughout the match where maybe he found Galan's body with a smash and like went straight away to say sorry, or like he mishit a ball and played a drop shot and they both like had a laugh. You can't do that. And then if things go wrong and you lose, then you completely change your temper. So from Galan's point of view, he's probably thinking, look, I mean, Lebron acts sometimes really happy when things are going his way, but when they're not, he loses his head. And I've suffered with that throughout throughout all the time when we played together. But yeah, I'd say all in all, I'm slightly more on Lebron's side. I'm more team Lebron than team Galan in this whole argument. I don't know about you, Gons.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I said, Lebron's probably been, I guess, the most honest. And even when Galan kind of was telling the journalist, like, I've asked him if he still keeps his phone number so I can message him, he was kind of like half laughing whilst he was saying it. So, I mean, that probably doesn't sit too well with Lebron, kind of even taking a bit of a joke or a jab at this whole situation when, I mean, it's quite clear that Lebron's like actually hurt by all of this. So, probably not the best, I guess, there from Galan. And yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, we also don't really know kind of what happened indoors. So I wonder, I kind of feel like maybe in December when they were about to break up, maybe Galan kind of a kind of lost and they eventually like fixed it and kind of they announced that they were going to continue together. I kind of feel like there maybe Galan kind of like really asked of Lebron like, hey, you know, I just don't want you to do this, or you know, we need to kind of behave accordingly. And after the whole situation with the Yanguas, maybe that kind of like just completely threw him off and kind of broke his trust completely, which then was kind of like the what essentially spurred the split. So in a way, I just feel like Alan maybe is probably as well quite hurt there and is not willing in a way to forgive maybe what has happened. So I don't know, a lot of like sad and bad feelings, I think, from both of them. But yeah, in this particular situation, I would agree that probably LeBron is kind of the bigger person in the sense that he kind of also seems like wants to talk things out and stuff like that, and still probably has a lot to say to Galan about what has happened. And it does seem like maybe Galan's a bit more like shut off or shutting him off at that possibility, which is a shame. I mean, it'd be obviously great if they both sat down and kind of like talk things over and at least get to a point where it's kind of like cordial and professional. And then maybe with time, once everything heals, they can then get back to that kind of more friendship relationship.
I tell you what I found quite funny and quite you could clearly see, and it just emphasizes how salty Lebron is about the whole situation, is when he was asked something around what's been your best moment or your best phase throughout your career? And he said his time with Paquito was
Yeah.
better than his time with Galán. Now, I understand the fact that no Spanish player had reached the number one rank before Lebron and Paquito did so together. So that was obviously must have been very special. They're both from Andalusia as well. So that's special in a separate way. And also the fact that I think the first time you reach the number one spot is probably more special than consistently being at the top. But when he spoke about that phase with Paquito, he literally put it right at the top, not even being able to, like, almost as if it wasn't comparable to his time with Galan. Now, I think it's with Galan when he's reached a completely different level of paddle, and that's when he's really dominated the sport. Because with Paquito, I know they reached the number one spot, but they were only actually together for a year, and they split up because it seemed like it wasn't going to go. It wasn't going to work going forward. Even given that they were the number one ranked pair, and we've seen how their kind of game styles and their emotions and their personalities don't really match. We've seen that this year. So, putting down his time with Alan so much feels, I don't know, slightly, very salty and slightly, I don't know, hypocritical, because You can't be going around and saying that you're pissed off about Galan not being honest with you when you're not actually being honest with the press either. But yeah, I found that quite funny.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely don't believe him in that sense. I mean, I think there he was clearly taking a jab at Galan, because how can you not say that your most special time or the best time that you've been was when you were with Galan and all the things that they achieved together. I mean, it kind of feels like a jab at when Galan said that he feels like him and Chingoto are playing better, or he's been the best, like even with Lebron, or he's achieved like most. Can't remember exactly what like phrase it was, but I think it was like very something quite similar. I mean, I just think in the whole situation, it feels like both sides are reluctant at the moment to kind of forgive, and they're both kind of still with a bit of resentment about whatever their situation like was indoors, and what really happened, because we probably don't know exactly what happened and kind of why they're like this. We just know the kind of external events, but we don't know what was discussed really in indoors. So yeah, incredibly sad. I do actually want to say kind of one last thing, and another takeaway that I got from this whole situation. And I kind of feel like now I understand why Lebron has been playing the way he's played. I think that the way he's played this first half of the season, I think this is something that's been like heavily weighing on him. And I think that it's affected like mentally. And I think that we've seen on court that essentially, or that mental, I guess, weight being reflected on court and his playing. I mean, Paquito said it in an interview. He said that he thought the whole split with Galan was still a shock to him, and he was still kind of processing that whilst he was with Paquito. And Paquito kind of mentioned that he feels like that was probably one of the reasons, along the game style and all of that, that they probably couldn't get the best out of each other. So I don't know, maybe that Lebron has let this all out now. Maybe he feels a bit better, and maybe we're now going to see a much better version of him. So we'll see about that. But I do think that all of this situation definitely has had an effect into how he's performed this first half of the season.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. You could just see him. He was just not himself on court, like nervous, erratic. And Juan Lebron's obviously one of the most talented players that we've ever seen. And he was just not confident. And Lebron, I think one of the words that I've always used to describe him is confidence. When you watched him playing throughout all his career, he's been a super confident player. He's tried shots that seemed impossible, and he's pulled them off more than he's missed them. And I think one of the reasons why he's reached the level that he's reached is because of his confidence in himself. So you could clearly see that this whole issue has affected him big time. And look, I mean, just one last point on that beef. It's just, I understand that what you said is probably right. And Lebrón did say that someday the truth will come out. So I am actually really looking forward to it, but it'll probably only be in some time, in due course. But it is probably true that Galan and Lebron probably sat down at the end of the season after all the rumors of them splitting, and Galan probably said, "Look, I'm happy to stay together, but you've got to sort out these emotional roller coasters." And Lebron probably said, "Yeah, I'm making a big effort," and he said it publicly that he's making an effort to improve that. Then it was absolute head loss in that match against Yanguas and Garrido. Now, I understand Galan being incredibly angry, but all it would have taken from him was have a conversation with Lebron in person, tell him, hey, this is not going to work, and leave it like that. And if you are literally his neighbor, pretty much, you have to have that conversation face to face. I feel that side of the argument, which is what Lebron's saying, is unacceptable. So I do agree with Lebron in that sense. I understand him being so, salty and so frustrated. And it's a shame because I think it's been the reason why we haven't seen Lebron at his best so far. But who knows? Obviously, he won his first tournament with Dineno a few weeks ago in Finland. And I'm sure he's absolutely raring to go again. Also playing at, not home because he's from Andalusia, but it's his second home because Lebron lives in Madrid. So he'll be very excited to, prove doubters and haters wrong.
Yeah, I have no doubt about that. I mean, And with all of this added to what was already looking like an incredible second half of the season, I mean, this is going to add even an extra element, an extra spice to it, especially when we see that matchup again against Galan, and this time Lebrón with Dineno. So it's going to be super interesting, and I can't wait for that. But maybe now we can head and talk about the upcoming Premier Padel P1 in Madrid. Very excited, like we've mentioned, to have Padel back, and we do kind of want to go ahead and give our own little predictions. Hugo, maybe do you want to kick us off?
Yeah, what are we going for? What's the structure? Are we just going for the two finalists or and the winner, or what are we kind of going for?
I'd say let's go like we did with the race last year, and let's do
Ooh,
semis, final, and if you can give the score in sets, even better.
oh, that's bold. I mean, have you had to think about it? Because I might need 30 seconds. I mean, I can just do it off the top. Okay. I mean, I think the first semi-final would be, I'm going to go standard. I think Coya and Dabia will play Dinero and Lebron because they're on the same side of the draw. The second semi-final, I'm doubting a little bit, but I do also think it will be the favourites. So fourth seeded Yanguas Astupa against second seeded Chingoto and Galan. I mean, Chingoto and Galan's run to the semis pretty easy as well. So the favourites, I think, will make the semis. I think in the semis, Galan Chingoto will beat Yanguas Estupa relatively comfortably. I'd be surprised if they didn't. So I'd say 2 sets to love. Coyon Tapia against Dineno Lebron. It's an interesting one. I'm going to go 2 sets to love as well to Coyon Tapia. So I think it's going to be El Clasico once again in the final. The Bombarderos against Chingalan. And I think Coyon Tapia are going to win it. I actually think they're going to win it 2 sets to love. I think it's going to be a hell of a tournament from them. So I think they're going to get back from the holidays, raring to go, rested, and well, fingers crossed. But that's what I think is going to happen. Gons, over to you.
Nice. So we do disagree in some areas,
Hello. Okay.
but we don't disagree in who's going to be in the semi-final. So I
Okay.
definitely, I mean, just can't see honestly any other pairs than the favorites. And I know it sounds like just a bit, I don't know if harsh or just like following the favorites kind of favoritism, but yeah, I just really can't see anyone else kind of cracking that. So Tapiacoy on one side and Lebron and Dina on the other. And then Chingalan versus Yanguas and Stupa. I mean, I was a bit doubtful, to be honest, with Yanguas and Stupa, but looking at their side of the draw, I do think that it's quite manageable.
Mm.
I also think that probably this month has been quite good for them in terms of like training and spending a lot more time together. But I mean, in terms of the semifinals, I would say actually Tapia Coelho 2-1 against Lebron and Dineno. I
Okay.
could very well see the classic first set sloppy start from Tapian Coelho and kind of the fresh of Lebron and Dineno, but then Tapia Coelho just so clinical once they win that second set and when they're actually pressed. So I think it's going to be a comeback from them. And then Chingalan versus Yanguas and Stuba, to be honest, I mean, 2-0 there for Chingalan. I think they're kind of clear favorites. But then in the final, I think Chingalan are going to be the winners. And I'm actually thinking 2-love to Chingalan. So yeah, I mean, on the other hand, I think that Chingalan are going to be cruising and raring to go this tournament.
Interesting. I mean, the only thing I'd counter argue you with is that I do think that Cardona Paquito could potentially challenge. I think it's Lebron Dineno are in
Yeah.
their like core of the draw. I liked what I saw from Paquito and Cardona in the Finland P2 before we had the break for the holidays. So who knows? I mean, say Lebron Dineno struggle in the first set, they lose it. I mean, Lebron's not had the easiest season. I could see that mentally they could struggle because we haven't really seen them struggle yet. But yeah, I really can't wait. And Chingalan for the win. I mean, I think that's. Would you say it's a safe option? Do you think they're the favourites?
No, I mean, I don't think so. I still think Tabiago are probably the favorites.
Okay.
But I
It's tight.
mean,
It's very 50
it's so
50.
tight. I don't think it can be tighter, to be honest. And actually quite interesting because Galan had an interview quite recently with Padel Up, and he was actually kind of mentioning how it's the first time that he feels he's actually in for like a proper number one race situation. Because obviously last year completely, I mean, thrown off with the whole with Lebron's injury. But then the previous years, he said like they've had moments, right? Like Lebron and Galan were always so solid, but then maybe there was like a spur where Paquito and Dineno had like a really good, like let's say, like end of the season, but then they started the season off really badly. So they haven't been in like a proper neck and neck number one fight where it's literally tournament in, tournament out, goes one way or the other. So yeah, I mean, it's really hard to kind of say who's favorite or who's not, to be honest.
Yeah, it's 50-50. I mean, I can't wait. I mean, I think it's also going to depend a little bit on the conditions of the court. Now, I don't know whether it's going to be a really fast court or not. I think it'll be more of an intermediate court. That probably benefits Galan and Chingo because I think Chingo the slower the court, the better for Chingo. So it could potentially benefit them. But I guess we'll see. I just can't wait. I mean, Paddle being back is the dream. So yeah, it was interesting to hear your prediction. There's also a lot of new pairs that are going to make their debut. Chofas Augsburger, which would be I'm looking forward to seeing them play together again. Another pair that I really like the sound of is Libac and Victor Ruiz. I think Victor Ruiz is a very underrated player. He hasn't had his best season so far, but I think next to Libac, who's obviously very in form, it could go well. And
They
then who knows?
were they were my sneaky semi-finals pick because they are in Yanguas and Stupa's side.
Yep.
And I think that side of the draw, the quarterfinals, I think is projected would be Garrido and Alex Ruiz, who were both very down on. So sneaky, like I mean, I was looking at the other names. I mean, there's River Gamini, and we've seen obviously Yanguas and Stupa haven't had the best start. So I don't know, like it could be quite interesting. I mean, Livac and Ruiz, I completely agree with you. I think it's going to be really interesting. Ruiz, a really underrated player. He's for me definitely one of the top left-sided players.
Yeah, agreed. And I think there's one other pair. Well, not a kind of new pair, but Coquinito John Santh. They're in Chingalan's quarter, and they made the final in the previous P2. I'd say they've had a very good season against the top pairs. I mean, they've beaten a lot of them. Not Chingalan, not Koyon Tabia, but basically everyone else, if I'm not mistaken. So could they challenge Chingalan in the first tournament back? Maybe they're feeling a little bit rusty. I don't know. I mean, I'm sure Chingalan and Galan, Chingodo and Galan will be raring to go, given that, as you said, the number one race is very much on. But you never know. Cocky and John have produced a few upsets. So I do have kind of faith in them making that match difficult if it happens.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, up until Cocky and John, the side of the draw is manageable, but Cocky and John is definitely it will be a hard step to go through. But yeah, I think that probably brings us to the end of the episode. And as always, Hugo, it's been an absolute pleasure. And to all our audience and listeners out there, please do watch the Madrid P1. And if you have enjoyed this video as well, please leave a like and subscribe to the channel. And we'll catch you very soon.
Yeah, guys, there's a lot of paddle coming up. So very excited to share and talk about it. And yeah, see you very soon.